Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll be concluding our reading from Vaishnav K. What kind of devotee are you? Verse number 15. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Srila Prabhupada repeatedly warned his followers to learn from the mistakes of the Gaudiya Math institution and thus not make the same mistakes. Srila Prabhupada said that the test of how much his followers loved him was to what extent they cooperated together. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness was founded on this principle of cooperation as embodied in the teachings of His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who wanted the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to have the same spirit of cooperation as the original movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada repeatedly wrote in his books that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness was a branch of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual tree. This statement carries with it a clear responsibility to maintain the universal spirit of unity and cooperation of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Materialistic conditioned life is a life of burning desires, fears, and lamentations in the throes of attachment to material sense gratification. After putting out that fire, one must avoid being devoured in the other fire, that of impersonal liberation, which burns up one's individuality and devotion. A type of spiritual suicide. Falling into this illusion is tantamount to jumping from the proverbial frying pan into the fire. Lord Chaitanya's teachings have condemned the desire for merging in the Supreme as the worst form of cheating. Tare madhya moksha vancha kaitav pradhan yaha haite Krishna bhakti haya antardhan. The foremost process of cheating is to desire to achieve liberation by merging in the Supreme, for this causes the permanent disappearance of loving service to Krishna. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela 1.92. Having attained devotional service to Krishna, one must remain in the proper service attitude towards the devotees of the Lord, guarding against any desire which can obstruct further advancement. The mind must be purified from the desire for personal aggrandizement in the society of devotees, since if a devotee falls into this type of maya, his service attitude is lost. To justify his wrongful actions, his mind becomes unnecessarily critical of pure devotees. Ultimately, driven by his own envious and uncontrolled mind, he soon finds himself bereft of the purified association of the devotees, having left for a situation more agreeable to the dictations of his false ego. The devotee of Lord Krishna has no desire other than serving Krishna. If a devotee understands Krishna, he immediately becomes desireless, nishkam. A Krishna Bhakt knows that his friend and protector in all respects is Krishna, who is willing and able to do anything for his devotee. Krishna says, Kaunteya prati janihi na me bhaktah pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. This is from Bhagavad Gita 9.31. Since Krishna gives this assurance, the devotee lives in Krishna and has no desire for personal benefit. After all, why should the devotee aspire for something good for himself? His only business is to please the Supreme. Avashya Rakshibe Krishna Vishwasa Palana. This is from Sharnagati 1. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he is desireless because Krishna will give him protection in all circumstances. It is not that he expects any assistance from Krishna, he simply depends on Krishna, just as a child depends on his parents. The child does not know how to expect service from his parents, but he is always protected. Nevertheless, this is called Nishkam, desirelessness. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 19.149, purport. Although someone who is simply meditating upon his own personal benefit is not a pure devotee of Krishna, due to false ego and the illusory energy, he considers himself more advanced than the pure Vaishnavas. Thus, bewildered by the material illusion, he may leave the association of devotees and think to himself, I am self sufficient, chanting by myself. Another trap is that Maya, the illusory energy, may even trick a senior devotee engaged in preaching by suggesting the following thoughts. Now the spiritual master is gone, now I may have my own private movement with many faithful followers who worship me. I am free and independent to do whatever I desire. I am more advanced and intelligent than the others. I don't need anyone else's help to preach around the world. Why should I cooperate with the foolish devotees who blindly follow the previous Guru's instructions? I have personally understood the real meaning of Krishna consciousness. Usually, although if a devotee prefers intellectual discussions over dynamic preaching, he ends up falling prey to Maya's offer to enjoy Krishna's pastimes rather than serving the desire of Krishna and the spiritual master. In this case, influenced by Maya, the devotee may think as follows. These neophyte devotees simply spend their time discussing the preaching and expanding the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. These activities are all external and elementary, whereas I am always absorbed in thoughts of Radha and Krishna's confidential pastimes. I am the most advanced of all. These neophyte devotees are wasting their time preaching to unrefined living entities. When they become advanced, they will follow me instead and enjoy exclusive high level devotional discussions away from the hassles of preaching to mundane people. The mind is so treacherous that, due to false pride, a devotee can easily be cheated if he is not careful to follow the previous acharyas. Considering himself the best devotee, he deviates from pure devotional service. Subsequently, his mentality becomes offensive towards pure devotees. Srila Prabhupada has pointed out that even the desire to become the best devotee is also a type of Maya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is his own best devotee. Srimati Radharani is Krishna's best devotee. No one else can have that position. One should rather, in all humility, try to be sincere servant of the best devotees of the Lord and simply desire to satisfy Krishna and his devotees. The notion of becoming the best may be tinged with material desires. A devotee must learn from the spiritual master what Krishna wants and with determination endeavor to satisfy Krishna through devotional service. The criterion is that a devotee must know that Krishna wants him to do what Krishna wants him to do. This understanding can be achieved through the medium of the spiritual master, who is a bona fide spiritual representative of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami advises Adav Gurva Ashrayam, one who is serious about wanting to render pure devotional service to the Lord must take shelter of the spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession from Krishna. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshyo viduhu. This is Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Without accepting a bona fide spiritual master coming in the disciplic succession, one cannot find out the real purpose of devotional service. Therefore, one has to accept the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and agree to be directed by him. The first business of a pure devotee is to satisfy his spiritual master, whose only business is to spread Krishna consciousness. And if one can satisfy the spiritual master, Krishna is automatically satisfied. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasada. This is the success of devotional service. This process is completely manifest in the activities of the Krishna consciousness movement. It has been actually proved that the entire world can accept devotional service without failure. One simply has to follow the instructions of the representative of Krishna. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya-lila 19.167's purport. It is natural to endeavor for a high standard of service while attempting to carry out the order of the spiritual master, but one should never obstruct another devotee's performance of devotional service out of envy. There is no room for envy or exclusivity in Krishna consciousness. For example, an example in this regard is when Lord Ramchandra chastised the great devotee Hanuman while he was engaged in throwing mountain tops into the ocean to make a bridge for Ram's army to cross over to Lanka for telling a spider to move out of the way. I'll repeat that. An example in this regard is when Lord Ram chastised the great devotee Hanuman while he was engaged in throwing mountain tops into the ocean to make a bridge for Ram's army to cross over to Lanka, for telling a spider to move out of the way. The spider was busily throwing small dust particles into the ocean to assist Lord Ram as well. Lord Ram told Hanuman, "Don't be proud. The spider's devotional service is just as satisfying to me as yours. He is serving me according to his capacity. You are serving me according to your capacity." Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is satisfied by seeing more people engaged in devotional service. A Vaishnava is described as the rarest of all transcendentalists, but this does not mean that he doesn't want the community of Vaishnavas to increase. When he sees more and more people engaged in serving for the satisfaction of Krishna, his joy increases because he knows this is pleasing to the Lord. He only desires the satisfaction of Krishna. Pure devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are described as Goshti Anandi, which means one who feels increasing transcendental ecstasy in devotional service to the Lord by seeing the expansion of the society of devotees. If the mind does not become bewildered and neglects the essential principles of the devotional service, it is considered the greatest misfortune for a devotee. Normally, once having tested the essence of pure devotional service, no one will consciously give it up. The mind can normally lose appreciation for devotional service after having appreciated it only by carelessly committing Vaishnava aparadh or offense to Vaishnavas, other offenses to the holy name, the holy dham, or the worshipable deities of the Lord can also have disastrous effects. Once purified and experiencing the pure ecstasy of devotional service, the mind considers material enjoyment very insignificant. If it is seen that a devotee loses appreciation for devotional service, either he was not fully surrendering his mind to devotional service, or he is suffering the effects of offenses. Someone who is not fully absorbing the mind in service may externally carry on his devotional practices, but internally does not allow the mind to actually surrender to Krishna. For a certain period of time, one may be able to control his words and actions through force, but as this is merely external mechanical control, it eventually stops. I'll repeat, for a certain period of time, one may be able to control his words and actions through force, but as this is merely external mechanical control, it eventually stops. Ultimately, one must surrender the mind and desires to the Lord. When one has no other desire than to serve the Lord in pure devotional service, one's mind is properly situated, then only one can begin to taste the full nectar of devotion. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's prayer to the mind clearly states that the mind already knows these teachings very well. Since devotional service is not a new subject, therefore he is astonished by the mind's engaging in criticism of pure devotees and its imitation of the Mayavadis. He asks the mind, Kena va dakicha nirjan ahaba? Why are you calling me to the battlefield of solitary worship instead of the peaceful situation of proper association with devotees? Solitary worship of Krishna is described as the war front, a place where Maya can and will attack the devotee easily. Anyone who leaves the shelter of association of devotees must places himself in a most vulnerable position. The dream of a peaceful retreat to solitude is actually the camouflage covering the inevitable battle with Maya, a battle that most devotees lose unless they retreat to the protective shelter of Vaishnava association. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned the devotees to avoid offending other Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, especially the spiritual master, as these offenses can isolate a devotee from pure devotional service and association. Offenses to devotees have been described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as mad elephant offenses, because like a mad elephant they can trample the garden of one's devotional creeper. Even an advanced devotee who has achieved ecstatic devotional service can fall down from his position by offending a devotee of the Lord, or by carelessly allowing the weeds of unwanted desires and practices to accumulate in the heart. Desires such as wanting to leave the association of devotees to practice so called secluded worship of Krishna fall into the category of weeds in the heart, and the best cure for these weeds is to yank them out by their roots. As illustrated in this verse, the mind should be trained to avoid alluring invitations of Maya to leave the shelter of Guru and Vaishnav. A mind which is contemplating these alternatives is contaminated. Purify it by reading, hearing, and preaching the message of the holy Shastra such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. The mind will become completely purified by serving the spiritual master in a surrendered mood in the company of other devotees and selflessly engaging in the activities of the Sankirtan movement. If the mind is trained in this pure attitude of devotional service, one will experience the highest eternal ecstasy of pure Krishna consciousness. So we'll begin verse 16 next time in our reading. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. And also today is the start of the Chaitra Navratris and also the lunisolar calendar New Year 2083. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.